Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session on Power BI. Some of you had met yesterday for the Consulting Decks webinar as well. Some of you might have worked on Power BI or on Tableau, or maybe you have never worked on it or heard of it. So that is what the session is about today. We will be working on one tool, which is Power BI. It's a tool owned by Microsoft, and it is the #1 business intelligence platform in the world. Before we start, since I'm meeting some of you for the first time, I'll just take 2 minutes to introduce what I do. And the reason I always do this is because the easy way to introduce myself is to say that I am a data analytics consultant, but that doesn't tell you much. While you know it is something to do with data, you don't really know what I do with the clients that we work with. So this is just a quick 2-minute introduction so as to clear all those questions. So I run a firm called Havisham Consulting, and we have delivered over 1,100 trainings in the last 8 years. We work with 45 plus companies across various sectors. We have worked on over 150 consulting projects of various shapes and sizes. And we also have a combined experience of over 18 years. What we do can be broken down into 6 things. We help companies with their digital transformation strategy, data analytics, visualization, business intelligence, that is insights, process automation, that is productivity, and the workflow architecture to help create the business process behind the scene. So initially, we help a company come up with solutions to their existing problem. We do employee training and leadership coaching to tell people how to work with solutions and not just to give them a solution, but also empower them to come up with their own solutions. And obviously, we help them create business use cases. There are 2 of us. I'm the founder. We will be completing 5 years in a week's time in February. And Talha, who is one of my ex-interns, has now joined me as a full-time consultant. We work with a wide variety of clients, so a lot of work in the energy, power, oil and gas sector. My personal experience is with Reckitt Benckiser, where I spent about 3 years working in sales. So we work a little bit with CPG and healthcare, a lot with government ministries and public institutions. So a lot of sessions for National Stock Exchange, NABARD, National Skill Development Corporation, and so on. And I've also done over 250 workshops for 2 of the big fours, PwC and EY. Our work has been featured in Business World, Analytics Insight, Economic Times. The most recent engagement that we did was with Sabera, that is one of India's leading social and business responsibility awards. What we do is to take a client through the entire spectrum, starting with descriptive analytics, that is looking at historical data, diagnostic analytics, that is about telling us why something happened. So if our sales are going down, why is that? If our stock is not performing as expected, what could be the reason for that? Predictive analytics focuses on the future. So basis our historical data and trends, we want to know what can we expect will happen in the time to come. And the most difficult part is prescriptive, because prescriptive tells us how to make something happen. Now, different clients are at different stages of analytics maturity. So depending on where the client is, we identify their pain points, their problems, and we come up with a solution. So we do a lot of things, but these 6 screenshots should give you a pretty good idea what we do. So we help create formulas, create better models, create dashboards, create models between different data sets, create VBA user forms, and obviously the workflow architecture. These are workshops that we have conducted at Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, NASSCOM, National Stock Exchange, NABARD, and Economic Times. We obviously offer corporate and business school trainings in a wide variety of products. I've also conducted workshops for 17 of the IIMs and the top 8 IITs. In Delhi University, we also teach at Shri College of Commerce. We do a lot of engagements for them. So that's what we do. I hope this gives you a sense of what we do when I say that we work as an analytics firm. All right, now let's talk about Power BI for the next 40-45 minutes. The umbrella is Power Platform. It's something that Microsoft has. Is it a part of Microsoft Office? Not at all. It is something separate, which has to be downloaded and bought separately. But Power BI is completely free of cost. Now, this session is about Power BI, so I will not spend too much time on the Power Platform, but Power Platform includes Power BI. The BI stands for Business Intelligence. How is it better than Microsoft Excel? In a way, it's pretty much like Excel. It does what Excel can do, analyze data, create charts, but it is much more powerful than that. It can connect to more data sets, it can do deeper analysis, and not just the analysis, but also the insights that come out of it. Power Apps is a tool that allows you to create applications with minimal coding, so either no code or low code. Power Pages allows you to create websites. Power Automate is for automation of your workflows, and Power Virtual Agents is for chatbots. In case you're interested, you can go back to the website and have a look. Now, why is it important to learn Power BI? And why is it that it's not a part of college curriculum, even in MBA programs? And why is it that a lot of people don't really talk about it? The reason is that Power BI is still fairly new. Power BI was introduced for the first time in 2015. Imagine Excel came in 1985. Power BI came 30 years later in 2015. The BI, as I mentioned earlier, stands for Business Intelligence, and it is the number one business intelligence tool in the world. There is an annual report that comes from Gartner called the Magic Quadrant for BI. And as you can see, Microsoft Power BI is number one, followed by Tableau. And then, of course, a lot of other companies are there as well. So that's what it does. It's used by 97% of the Fortune 500 companies. So basically, all the large companies in the world work with Power BI. So this is the background. Now let's get started and see what it can do. Now, it is a Microsoft application, so it is not available on the Mac. So in case any of you are working on a Mac, you will first have to install Windows on your laptop, and only then can you install Power BI. It is very unfortunate that you have to go through that extra trouble, but because of the architecture of Power BI, unfortunately, you don't have a choice. On Windows, it works perfectly, but on the Mac, you first have to install Windows to make it work. How can you download it? You can simply go to the Microsoft Store, which is like the App Store that you have on iOS and Android. And on the Microsoft Store, you can see that I can simply search for Power BI. And the one that you will download is Power BI Desktop, the very first one. And like I mentioned earlier, it's completely free of cost. Now let's look at a data set and try to understand why not Excel? How is Power BI better than Excel, right? Let's have a look. So I'll be working on a file, which is a pretty good file. This is the type of file that all companies work with. So imagine a Unilever or a Tata Motors or an ICICI. They work with massive amounts of data that they are capturing every day. To give you an example, we work with Bharat Petroleum, and just at their petrol pumps, they're capturing 1.5 crore transactions every day. I'm not even talking about the refinery and the plant and the shipping data. Just the data coming from petrol pump is 1.5 crore transactions every day, which is a mammoth number, right? So this is how organizations have their data. Now, this data, what you see on the screen, is of course fictitious. It isn't real data. That means the numbers are not real. But otherwise, it is pretty much a real data. This is exactly how the data for any company would be. As you can see, we have the order date, we have the shipping date, I have the name of the customer, the city, state, country, region, and market, which is the geography. After that, we have the category, segment, subcategory. And finally, the sales quantity, discount, and profit. Can someone tell me, just by looking at this data, what do you think the data is about? Like what type of company, what function? Anyone? You can put it in the chat window or you can unmute yourself. What do you think the data is about just by looking at this small sample? Okay. So Vani, maybe an export company. All right. And that's a fair guess because we have order date, ship date, we have multiple countries. So it's a good guess. Why would we have multiple countries if it's just a domestic company, right? It is export data. Anyone else? What function is it? Do you think it's finance data, supply chain, sales, marketing? If you had to pick one, okay, so Bhavika, sales, which is fair enough because we do have the data for sales, quantity, discount, and profit, right? Why would it not be marketing? Obviously, if it was marketing data, then I'll have details on advertising campaign, branding, packaging, research, right? So great. All of you know what the data is. Okay, now imagine that I want to know who are my top 10 customers, right? Now it's not that easy. Think about it. Because we have 51,000 transactions, how do I know who my top 10 customers are? To do this, I will first have to go to insert. Just follow where I'm clicking on the interface. I go to insert, we select pivot table, which is one of the most powerful tools in Microsoft Excel. And then in the pivot table, now we can put the customer name in the rows and the sales in the values. Now it tells me that Aaron Bergman is one of the customer and the total sales for Aaron Bergman is 24,644, right? Which is okay. How many times has Aaron made a purchase? How do you know that? If I double click on the cell, it tells me that Aaron has made, as you can see, 89 transactions. Similarly, if I look at the last person, Zuckers has made, if I double click, has made 54 transactions. So this is a very easy, simple, elegant way of getting the result. But remember, we only want to know who the top 10 customers are. How do we do it? First, I'll have to right click and then sort my data. So sort largest to smallest. And then I have to apply a filter. So we go to the filter and we select value filter, top 10. And we say that we want to select the top 10. And there you go. So Tom, Tamara, Greg, Christopher, Sean, Bart, Natalie, Fred, Jane, Hunter. Top 10 customers. Was this a difficult process? I mean, not really. It did not take me too much effort to get these numbers right. Like, I did not have to write any formula. I did not have to do much effort manually. We simply had to drag and drop. The customer name came in the rows and the sales came in the values, right? This is how people have been working for 30 plus years. It doesn't matter if you are a fresher, a student, or a partner at a PwC. This is the way you work. This is the way you do your calculations. How has Power BI changed this complete process? Let's have a look. First, let me delete all the extra sheets. So I will go to Power BI and we want to create a new report. What we will do is to load the same Excel file in Power BI. So I will select my folder. We select Excel workbook. I will select my folder path. And then we will select exactly the same file that I had shown you before. So we click on open. And just like a pivot table, you will now get a list of all the columns. Once I select the sheet and load it, a list of all the columns from the Excel will come inside the Power BI file on the right side. So as you can see, we have a list of all the columns. Now you must be wondering, okay, but how is it different? This is just like a pivot table, right? No, it is very different. Have a look. Now I have AI capabilities, which means I have a visualization called Q&A, which is question and answer. And how does it work? If I click on the Q&A, I can ask it a question. That means I don't have to do anything manually. No formula, no need to drag this, sort this, filter that. I can simply write who are my top 10 customer name by sales. And isn't that brilliant? It tells you same result. Tom, Tamara, Greg, Christopher, Sean, Bart, Natalie, Fred, Jane, Hunter. How nice is that? Just one single natural language query. We are just asking a question and it is able to create not just the result, but also a chart for us. So that's our first checkpoint. If anybody has any question you can ask, then we will continue. It has a lot more to offer. I've just shown you one of 10,000 features that Power BI has, but let's talk about this, then we will continue. Any questions, anyone? Okay, let's check the chat window. I also want to make sure that all of you do have the option to unmute yourself. Okay, let's have a look. All clear? Excellent. Now, is this the only thing that Power BI can do? Not really. There's a lot more that it can do. I'm just going to keep this on the side like this, and we will just make this into a table because we are not really interested in a chart at the moment. I just want to see a table with all the values in it, right? Like this. What if I want to make a map, which means I want to select, you can see there are multiple visualizations available. So I want to select a map. Excel doesn't have one, but we do have multiple maps available on Power BI. So I want to select the map. And then in the map, I want to keep the location as my state. And then below the state, we will keep the city. And then in the bubble size, we will keep the sales value. So as you can see, it is plotting every single state and city in the world where we are selling our products. But what if you only want to see the data for one country, let us say India? To do this, what we will do is in my filters, you will notice that we can add a filter. So I will add a filter for the market. And then in the market, we are only selecting APAC, Asia Pacific. So we have all the data like this. But again, I just want to see one country at a time, either Japan or Korea or India. So I will click outside. We will select a new visualization called a slicer. Then in the slicer, we will keep the country. And you notice we get a list of all the countries like this. Now, this filter that I've applied for the market is applied to the visualization right now. That is why the countries are shown for the entire world. But if I remove this and I keep the filter on the page, what will happen? Now, this filter of the market on the page will apply to the slicer. So now you notice the countries are only shown for India, which makes sense, or for Asia Pacific. And now if I want to select one country at a time, I select the country. And how cool is that? It now shows me all the states here. We can also change the type of the slicer. If I go to formatting, I can change my slicer to a drop down like this. And now you notice whichever country we select, it shows us the data only for that country. In the Q&A, we don't want to see the top 10. Let's make it top 3. Let's keep it like this. I'm going to shift it to the right. And the next thing we want to do is to select some KPIs. See, any good dashboard should have numbers at the top. Let me tell you what I mean by that. On the Power BI website, you will notice that there is a case study for Swiggy, officially given on the Power BI website. Just trying to find this. Here we go. And I'll also share the link with you. This case study talks about how Swiggy decided around 2014, around 2017, that they are working with so much data that their current system is not enough. And because the business is expanding, they want to shift to a more powerful system. So they ended up using Power BI. And look at this. This is the dashboard that Swiggy is using. Now, dashboards need to have multiple slicers and filters and charts in it, not just one. So this is one dashboard. This is another dashboard that they have created. So we also want to come back and I want to add some numbers at the top. I want to know what is my total sales and total profit. So I will make another visual, which is called a card. This one. And in the card, we will keep our sales value. Perfect. So that's our sales. Let me reduce the size a little bit. So let's go to format and reduce the size. Next to that, we also want to keep the profit. So we'll copy and paste, Control C, Control V, and we will change that to the profit. Now, how do we connect the map with the slicer, with the card, with the Q&A? Here's the best part. These are automatically connected. So we don't have to do anything, which means that if I select another country, do you see how the numbers are changing automatically? So if I select India, I can see who the top 3 customers in India are and the total sales and the total profit. But what if we want to see at a city level? Simple. I will select the drill down button, that is the single arrow that you see. And now whichever state I select, for example, Uttar Pradesh, it will show me all the cities within that particular state. Very cool, right? Let's do a little bit of formatting. So I will select my card and we will add a border and a shadow just so that it looks a little pretty. Format painter. I'll copy the same format everywhere else. Here as well, we want to add a border and a shadow. And one final time, we do this here on the Q&A. Looks a lot better than before. What is missing? We don't have a line chart. I don't know what is my performance over the last 4 years. So I want to make another chart. Let's copy and paste. And in this, I want to change this to a line chart or an area chart. In the area chart, I will remove the country. We will keep our order date. In the order date, we will also keep our sales value in the y-axis. And that's it. Here we go. It shows us how the performance is changing over the last 4 years. But it is better than that. Now, if I click on the expand button, it shows me the quarter-wise performance and then the month-wise and the day-wise performance, like this. Let's go back to the country level. So you can see that this is how the performance is for India. Now you might say, but sir, this is okay, but how do we add a number? Simple. We go to the format and we add the data label. Then the next question might be that if you're adding the number and the data is too much, then I can't see the numbers because I would like to see the data only for a particular duration. So what we do is we will add another slicer. So let me add another slicer, and this slicer is for the order date. So this is for the order date, and this works beautifully. As you can see, this is my slicer, everyone. And as I move the slicer, do you see how my line chart is also changing? And you can change these things on the fly, so if you don't like the line chart, you can just change it to a column chart, for example. See, there is no perfect chart. It's just you deciding, right? You have to experiment with different types of charts to see which is the best one for you. But the cool part is that so far, I've not even written one single formula. In literally 10, 15 minutes, we have managed to create an entire dashboard like this. Okay, so we'll take a pause now. If anyone has any question, you can ask. All clear? Thank you, Himanshi. Anyone else? Any other question? Remember, there are no bad questions. You don't have to ask a smart question. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to ask. All good? Excellent. So we have created a dashboard. Now let's go a little deeper and see how we can create some special charts. See, here's the thing. The dashboard looks great, but other than the map, it looks pretty much like an Excel dashboard, right? There's a chart, there are some numbers. Yes, the slices are fantastic, the Q&A is great, but it still doesn't have that wow factor. That one thing that absolutely captures your attention. Let's try to do that. So I'll make a new page, and now I can go to more visuals. And there is a store available called the app source. Just like you have a store for Android and iOS, similarly, you have the app source. We click on this. Now, this can only be accessed if you have a corporate account. That means you need to sign in to Power BI. You don't need to pay for it, but you need to have a corporate account or a student account. If you have been given one by the college, you will have to create an account using that. And once you have signed in, I can simply go to more visuals, select the app source. And as you can see, there are over 500 different types of charts available here. Let me show you something which I personally like a lot. We have something called the scroller. Let's have a look. This is sort of like a stock market scroller. We will add it. And you will notice now I can simply select the scroller. And then in the scroller, we can add our sales value. And in the category, we'll add our market. And it's nice, right? It's not just a static number that you're presenting, but on the contrary, you're able to show a dynamic value. Of course, the decimal places don't look good. So I can just go and fix that. Let's go to our sales value and remove the decimal. Here we go. And in the formatting, you can also do things like controlling the speed, for example. So I can make the speed faster, or we can make the speed slower. And you can also change the color like that. Let's try a few more. I will again go back to more visuals and the app source. Now remember, not all of these are free. Some of these are paid as well. Some of them are made by Microsoft. Some are made by other companies. So we will go down and we want to select something different. So now I want to select the animated bar chart race. Let's click on this. And this is fantastic. Something that earlier would have required Python. Now you can literally do this in one click. Let me show you how it works. Now, I don't want to install it because that will take time to set it up. But let me show you the sample. Let's download the sample. Open this. Let's wait for it to open. And here we go. Do you see how cool this is? You have an animated bar chart race like this. So cool, right? Check this out. I can actually see the change over time. Of course, you could have made a normal bar chart, but then how do you show the shift over time? That is what we're able to do here. It's an animated bar chart race. And remember, I've shown you two of them, but there are literally like 500 different charts available on Power BI. Plus, you can customize them and even make your own. Now, this is one side of Power BI, which is the visualization side, which obviously is very important. The other thing that we can do with Power BI is also data consolidation, which means that if you have multiple files and you want to clean it, transform it, similar to how Python works, you can do that in Power BI as well. Now, you might ask, but sir, why would we use Python if I have the same capability in Power BI? See, Python is a more general programming language. So it has many more capabilities than what Power BI offers. Python isn't just about visualization, it can do statistical analysis, machine learning, web scraping, among many other things. Power BI, on the other hand, is primarily a data visualization tool, but it's extremely easy to use. Let's have a look. So imagine that I want to combine the data from three Excel files. That means if I come back to my folder, you will see that we have a folder here which has three Excel files in it, which is sales historical, like this. And we are assuming that all the three have the same template, the same columns, the same order, the same spelling of the name. But even so, if you have to combine them, it's not that easy, right? You have to open, copy, paste. Now, with three of them, sure, you can do it. But what if there are more of them? Then that becomes quite challenging, repetitive, and the chances of an error increase considerably. So what we would like to do here is, I'll copy the folder path. We will come back to Power BI. Now, this time we are not selecting an Excel workbook like we did earlier. I want to select get data and then select more. And there are multiple dozens of data sources that Power BI can connect to. So we can connect to different types of files, databases, the Microsoft platform, Microsoft Azure, third party online services, and other connectors. As a matter of fact, even Python and R code can be written within Power BI. So now we want to select file. And because our files are multiple and they are in a folder, we will select folder and connect. And it's very simple. All you do is press Ctrl V, go to OK. It confirms to me that yes, there are 3 files in that folder and we want to combine and transform it. There is one final step, which is that I can select the name of the sheet called sales and then select OK. Now, what that does is it combines the data from all the 3 files, puts it one below the other, and makes it one single table. So if you notice, a new window has opened up, which is called the Power Query Editor. The Power Query Editor is a different language created by Microsoft. And what is it? It's a data preparation tool. That is why we call it data prep. It can connect, extract, transform, and load the data. And the language that we use in Power Query is called the M language. Why haven't you heard of it? All of you must have heard of C++ and Java and Python. It's not surprising because M language is still quite new. It's very powerful. It's picking up a lot. A lot of companies are using it. But it's just that it is for a specific purpose, right? It belongs within Excel, Power BI, Power Automate, SQL Server. It's a Microsoft language. Now let's see what it does. As you can see, it has added a column called source.name. And you see this, it has combined the data from all the 3 files into one single table. And it gets even better than that. Have a look. If I close and apply, then it gets confirmed. The data from all the 3 tables comes together. Let me make another page with a table. And we will add our order date and the sales value. 2011, 12, and 13. But what will happen if I add another file to the folder? This is so cool. I can simply add another file. Let's say we're adding 2014. And we also want to make sure that the data inside becomes 2014. So I'll just come here. And we will select our order date and we want to add 1 year to it. So we'll just do equal to edate, comma 12, so that we're adding exactly 1 year. Come back, paste it here. And as you can see, now we are getting the next year, 2014. Let's save it, close it. And now you will notice that the moment I click on the refresh button, I don't have to do much. I just have to click on the refresh button, and in one click, instantaneously, the data will get updated. As you can see, refresh, and that's it. Instantaneously, the 2014 data also gets picked up like this. So we have actually created an automation where the user doesn't have to spend a lot of time doing this mechanical work. They can do it automatically. Now you might say, but so what's the big deal? Like we could have always spent an extra 1 minute and done this manually. See, here's the challenge. When you do it manually, this is not a productive task. So the time that you're spending isn't worthwhile. It isn't helping the business, it's just mechanical work. Also, when you do it manually, the task is repetitive. You have to do it every single time. You have to do the knowledge transfer. If a new person comes to the team, you have to teach them how to do it. The chances of an error increase whenever you do something like this. And how will you do it if you have 500 files? You can physically do it, and people do it, but it's not the best use of your time, right? And automation is such an important area. So there are companies like Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, whose sole focus is to help companies automate their work. I want to show a case study to you. So this is Tata Sky, and you can see that the challenge that they had was that they were doing a lot of manual processes. And you see, they wanted to optimize it, reduce their spending, the money that they're spending, and they wanted to improve the speed and the accuracy. So what did they do? EY, as a consultant, helped them. They partnered with a company called Automation Anywhere, which is the number one automation company in the world. And you see, they worked on different areas in finance, supply chain, treasury. And what they managed to do was, with its capabilities, it was able to do non-stop and perfect for areas like MIS and reporting. So imagine all the manual, repetitive work that needs to happen, especially in the area of accounting. There's so much work that is repetitive. So it makes sense to automate that work. This is a very big challenge that companies have. And that is exactly what we have done here in Power Query. Any questions, anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll just wait for the others. If at all you have any questions.
No questions, sir.
All right. Now let's look at a little bit of AI here as well. So how do we reopen Power Query? We go to transform data. Now look carefully at the customer name. It is Aaron Bergman, Justin Ritter. Now imagine that I want to reverse the name. You might say, but why would you want to do that? Lots of reasons. If you look at your flight ticket, many times it shows the surname before and then the first name, isn't it? Or if you're opening a mobile app, sometimes, or a bank app, it might show you the surname and then the first name. Now, if I want to do this with a formula on Excel, I have to literally write a formula. But here in Power Query, all I do is right click. In fact, let me remove the other columns so you can understand it better. All I do is I can right click and we can select add column from examples, which means that we don't have to write a formula. We can simply give it an example. And then using that example, it can learn the pattern and then repeat it for the entire data. So when I select add column from examples, what does it do? I now have to give it a sample. So I will say Bergman, comma, Aaron. Let's give it one more. Ritter, comma, Justin. And that's it. It is able to detect the pattern. So it knows that Havish wants to keep the surname before, add a comma and a space, and then keep the first name. And it repeats the pattern for me. When I click on OK, that is what it does. It gives us the result. It does create a formula, as you can see, but this formula doesn't have to be written. That's the best part. You don't have to write the formula. Power Query just requires you to give a sample, and it is able to write the formula automatically, right? Obviously, just like yesterday, on our channel, there's a lot of content that you would find. So there are 984 videos that we have on Excel, PowerPoint, Word, Power BI, and you can go through them. There are playlists available on Power BI as well. from absolute basic to very advanced topics. This is an entire course available on Power BI in case you want to learn it. And learning it is very important. Learning Power BI is as important as it is to learn Microsoft Excel. Not more, but the same level of importance. If you look at the jobs around Power BI and how companies are expecting candidates to know Power BI today, it is very, very important, right? Great. I think we finish at 8 o'clock. If you have any questions, whatever they might be, you can let me know. I'll be happy to answer. Anyone? Any questions?
No questions, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, in case I have a case study that can be sent for practice, that would be great. Sure. I don't have a case study because remember, it is not a problem like a case study. It is more of an analytics problem. But I will share the data set with you so that you can go back and practice. Hold on. Right, I'll share it with Vani after the session is over. So the same data set on which I worked, and this is one of the most popular data sets on which we do our corporate trainings as well. I'll be sharing this data set with you. It has enough in it for you to experiment and practice a lot. And if you want to create a portfolio, this would be a good way of doing that. Excellent. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I hope you had a productive session. And do look at the YouTube channel in case you want to learn more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your active participation. Now, I would like you all to just switch on your camera so that we can capture this virtual moment together in order to remember this insightful session. So yeah, thank you everyone. And thank you, sir, for guiding us through Power BI and various other applications. And yeah, we would hope that we can continue with various such sessions in future. Thank you.
Thank you. All the very best.
Thank you, sir.